Good, Chris. How you doing?
Doing all right. When we spoke with you before the season, you mentioned defense is kind of one of the hallmarks that this team is going to have to adopt this season to get back to the tournament. I guess so far this season, how would you evaluate the team's defensive performance? What are you doing well? What do you need to still work on?
Well, I think we're improved. There's no question. I think it's something that we really started emphasizing even in the spring after the season when we only had 6 guys kind of working out together. As you've heard me say, I think Demetrius Jackson's ball pressure, that right there makes us a better defensive team. Wednesday is a heck of a test to guard a really explosive offensive team. So I think that's a great test for where we are defensively. We were disappointed in how we defended in our loss this year against Providence. And so, there's another evaluation against a heck of an opponent. Heck of an opponent on Wednesday. So, we're better. We still got a ways to go. But again, I think the ball pressure that Demetrius starts us with puts us in a better position to defend. And so it's something we want to keep building on.
What did you guys take from the Providence loss in that area after looking at the film of that?
Well, I think we were really disappointed. While we had a guy that absolutely went off on us, and maybe we could have done a better job with matchups, and I could have helped us more. Some of our decisions in the last 3 minutes with the ball, we had a couple turnovers. We had an over-the-back call. We just made we made some mistakes on the offensive end, which we're going to allow you to escape, even though a guy went off on you in Hinton. So can we be better, down the stretch at crunch time, making good decisions with it? Now, the day before, I thought we made really good decisions with the ball against UMass to kind of pull away. Those are, I think, those are areas you have to be. Overall, we've been really good with the ball. But you have to be great with the ball the last 4 minutes of the game in a close game.
And switching gears a little bit to Jaren, he's the leading assist guy for you so far this season. How does he straddle that line between being a scorer and being a distributor, or does he just do it kind of naturally?
I think Chris right now he's doing it kind of naturally. He's got a good feel of when to do it. I don't want to overcoach him in it because I think he's found a good balance point. What we've tried to do sometimes when we feel we need scoring from him or to get him into more of a scoring mode, we'll run some sets for him that kind of tells him psychologically, this is one for me to kind of go try and get a bucket. And even out of bounds situations, things like that. So I think that's for me to have a feel, let's get him a shot this time and see if we can get him going that way. But, excuse me, his playmaking ability is, I think it's something to really marvel at. How he finds people and involves his teammates is beautiful to watch.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
You played 5 home games. Wednesday will be a different atmosphere than you played. How do you keep from getting too wacky in that type of environment?
Well, it's a great point. It's something we're going to bring up. And I actually piped in crowd noise before we went up to Mohegan Sun. Usually you do it before you go on the road. We're going to use it a little bit today and tomorrow because it will be a different atmosphere. And can we have a great home atmosphere, as it's done many times here, give us energy and confidence and not get us out of character or play too fast? I think it's one of the top 3 things I need to address going into Wednesday.
How much because you played too fast early against UMass, but then you settled down. How much does having that experience know, okay, we can't come out and be so wild as we were in that game?
No, I think that's a good reference point to go back to, and I thought we adjusted then the next day against Providence. We got off to a nice, steady start. We weren't forcing things, but, it's easy to say it, and then you get in this frenzied atmosphere and some guys. So I think we really have to address it, and it's going to be allowed in segments of practice the next 2 days just to kind of simulate it.
So much of the talk in the offseason was let's be better defensively, and then yourself, let's be better offensively. But where does let's be better at home, where is that falling after what you had left?
Yeah, I think, for us to to be back in the mix for postseason, you've got to go back to doing what you've done here at home. Even with the poor home record last year, I think we're still in the top 10 in home winning percentage since, what's that, '07. So, and I think that's what, one guy who's talked about that the most has been our captain. Pat, he's talked about that, and I've not had to touch it. So, for us to get a win against a heck of a program for this team on our home building early in the season would be really something to build on.
I know you say you've done your penance about talking about last year, but what would a win Wednesday help further distance yourself from talking about last year and what you weren't able to do?
I'm trying not to talk about it so much. I don't talk about it with our team that much. I mean, you've kind of wanted to get this team's identity, its identity. Certainly they have a little chip on their shoulder after last year, and that's been a good thing. There's a little chip there, and that's good, but we don't bring it up a lot. I mean, I think it would be huge for this team to accomplish something like this Wednesday, as we've kind of I feel we've restabilized, but this would be so good for this group early in the season to feel like they've accomplished something against a really good program and team.
Your memories of Carlton Valentine.
Yeah, my man. I'm getting old when I'm coaching against the son of a guy I coached at DeMatha High School, and I had him in high school. Carlton Valentine was one of my most favorite players to ever coach at any level. I would compare him a Torrey Jackson personality, just a lot of life and energy, a heck of a basketball player. Michigan State, kind of took him out there, and he had a heck of a career. Certainly he's made his life here in the Midwest, and his son is one heck of a basketball player. It was funny because I saw him a lot on the road during the AAU circuit when Denzel was playing, and a lot of memories. I think I gave him a B+ in U.S. history, his dad.
Mike, obviously Michigan State a different team. How would you assess them from what they've been in?
Well, the thing that strikes you is how they're shooting. They're shooting the heck out of the basketball. Like us, they're making 9 threes a game. 38% of their field goal attempts are threes, 40% of ours. So we're a little similar offensively. The first two things you think about, and we've talked about it yesterday and actually worked some stuff in Friday's practice, transition defense. They really get down the floor on makes and misses. Trice gets deep outlets, and they shoot a lot of their threes in transition. Their percentage, and they throw ahead and fire. The kid from Cleveland State, the transfer Forbes, has given them another shooter out there. But transition D and then guarding the arc, I think, are the two big defensive keys for us on Wednesday.
In all the success that Tom Izzo has had, what makes him as good as he is?
Well, first of all, he's just a regular guy, and as a good friend, we used to be in the same gyms when he was we got our head coaching jobs the same year. He became the head coach back, so we've been head coaches the same amount of time, and we were assistants together, him recruiting for Judd, I was recruiting for Mike. Spent a lot of time in Chris Weber's high school gym and hung out a lot. But we're on the NABC board together. One of the good guys in the business who's a fabulous coach, certainly a Hall of Fame guy. And I think, he's kept it simple. It's a workman-like program. We're going to defend. We're going to rebound. Even though this year's team is a little different than his teams of the past because they are running and firing and not as much beating you up in the paint with big guys. Now, they're still on the backboard and they still play great half-court defense. But I think, Tom is consistent with this is the culture of our program. Kids come in and are very proud. And, he's done a great job and he's a good friend and one of the guys you pull for, except when you're playing him.
How would you assess Zach August's play up to this point? Is it about where you had hoped at this stage?
Yeah, I'm happy where he's at. I think one of the things he's done this past week in practice, and it carried over to games, was he has made good decisions out of the post with the ball. He is passing the ball out. And and I think that's because he is learning to slow down a little bit. Still has some moments where he gets a little frenzied. And in the atmosphere on Wednesday, that's something I want to address with him. Don't let the frenzied atmosphere have you play too fast too many times. But I think he's understood. He knows if he screens and rolls with a real good passing team, he gets easy stuff. That's why his shooting, he's not really taken many bad shots. Every now and then he experiments with a 15-footer. But tempo, passing, rebounding the ball, this is a big night for him Wednesday, and Demetrius, now to be in this atmosphere for those two guys. They've made great progress, and I think it's a big night for them.
You've talked about being happy that your scoring is up back to more the Mike Brey Notre Dame level. 3-point shooting, you got to feel like you've got more weapons than you've had here for a couple years.
We do. Our ability to spread and shot makers, you love. And I thought, Jaron and Demetrius's percentages have trended back up in the last week. VJ Beecham coming off and shooting it at that clip. It's a staple of our offense, and our ability to make the extra pass. We're getting some really good looks out there. It's nice that you have a number of different guys that have shot-making ability. So if somebody or two of them maybe aren't having a good shooting night, you may have two other guys having a good shooting night. You're not just relying on one guy. But that we are a threat, it opens that floor up then for when Jaron and Demetrius can drive and use ball screens.
You talked the other day about when you first got here, beating Georgetown, beating Syracuse as program wins. But what does this say about your program to be given Michigan State in a matchup like this? Where, coming off the year you had last year, I don't know if you would have expected to have one of the premier programs in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think the consistency of how we've done it here certainly played into the matchup. Certainly that we had Jaron Grant coming back probably played into it, and that we've had some just great home atmospheres and some amazing home games and home wins here. So it was I guess it was kind of a natural to put us together. What we haven't played in 38 years, and it'll probably be another 38 before we play again, unless they'll probably match us up again. But no, I think the respect for the program, even though we had a really disappointing year last year, is still very strong in the college basketball world, and the personnel we had returning, especially with Jaron.
When you would talk with Izzo on the recruiting circuit, were you ever close as to we might be able to do something with you guys next year? And the year after?
Never really were very close on it, in all honesty. And then once again, we've got once the Big Ten ACC became part of, we got the two Big Tens spoken for. I just felt I don't know. If you play a third Big Ten in a home and home, you got to spread your wealth in some other areas, and so it never, either both with them or Michigan, because they both were kind of reaching out, and we were talking about it. And the more I'm looking at our move to the ACC, and with the ACC Big Ten Challenge, we're going to probably rotate through the whole Big Ten, and obviously we have a lot of Big Ten fans in this town. They'll all get a chance to see their team play against us.
I know you get Orlando next year, but where are you future November tournaments?
Future November, we are Maui in 17, and then looking at options for the other ones. So 16, we still need something, right? 16, we need 15, we've got Orlando. 16, 17, Orlando. Still piecing together, do you get back to Brooklyn? 2 at home and 2 back in Brooklyn, back in New York? Do you do something in the Garden with one of those? Those are things we've been talking about.
Have you tried to get into Atlantis? Because that seems like that's the hot one.
Yeah. They, it's we've been talking to them. The gal who runs does a great job. She's been after us for a while, and the years that we have had open, they've already had an ACC team in it, and so nothing there in the near future. But we want to get through there at some point.
You mentioned Demetrius doing a really good job with ball pressure on defense. Is that something where you just had to kind of change his mentality, make him more aggressive in the offseason, or was it something more fundamental?
I think it's something that comes very naturally with Demetrius. He is an athletic defender, and I think when we kind of defined his role and simplified his role in Italy. I remember somewhere in a practice sitting everybody down and kind of going, I said, Demetrius, I think we found something for you to hang your hat on here. Two things. That's all I want you to worry about in these 4 games in Italy. Pressure the heck out of the basketball and run our team. Get comfortable quarterbacking our team, getting a feel for our sets. And don't worry about scoring, and don't worry about your shot. That'll all take care of itself, and it kind of has. He knows how important his ball pressure is, and his teammates continually reinforce, D, your ball pressure is really helping us. We put a tape together about a week ago where his ball pressure led then to an overplay steal by Jaron or Steve or Pat. And just to kind of reinforce, Pat, those guys are getting the attention because they got the steal, but whoa, what's going on with the ball? Look at your stance right here. And it's exhausting. And it's a time where I'm still trying to feel how to keep him fresh, so he can keep that ball pressure on there.
Surprised to be leading the league in steals? As a team, you're
Yeah,
number one.
yeah. I am pleasantly surprised, but when you look at our personnel and that we've talked so much about ball pressure and contesting, and we have good recovery time when we do get beat because we can move our feet with the smaller lineup. It's it really it's a nice thing to have that we've never been in this territory before on that end of the floor.
I know Ferry was the main guy in that one DeMatha team, but was Carlton Valentine?
Carl Valentine was a great high school player. And it was funny, his recruiting, Michigan State or American University. He was very under-recruited, but he was a 6'6" four-man. He was a power forward, and Mike Dean and Tom recruited him. Tom recruited him, and along with Mike Dean, they loved him from day one, and he carved out a nice niche up there. But he was kind of under-recruited because he was an undersized guy, and because there were so many other good players on that team. Quentin Jackson, Danny Ferry, kind of fell with. But Carlton Valentine was the fabric of the team. He was the voice. He was the humor. He was the motivator. He is just a pleasant guy to be around, and he's got a beautiful family, and he's got one heck of a good player in this son of his. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.